Hi everyone, I'm Jed Shlackman, a holistic counselor and spiritual energy healer. In this video I'll be speaking about a few interrelated topics. This will involve hypnotherapy, parts therapy, and internal family systems, which is a modality in the psychotherapy field that's working with what are called parts of a person's psyche or personality. In the field of hypnotherapy, the idea of working with different parts of the psyche or the consciousness is actually rather common. It's been used for a fairly long time, and the concept isn't unique to modern therapy approaches. It's very much related to ideas about our consciousness and psyche that have been held and implemented in some way by various cultures throughout history. If we think of shamanism, of shamanic cultures, they work with the idea of energy and soul fragments, pieces of a person's consciousness in a sense being fragmented or split off from their core self or their core energy in a sense. And when that happens, some type of therapeutic process is used to try to reconnect or reclaim that energy, to reintegrate that part of oneself so that it's not fragmented or disconnected, so that you can access that part of your being, that part of your energy. You can work with it rather than it being kind of stuck somewhere and in some situations kind of unconsciously taking over and driving your actions as kind of a survival mechanism or protective mechanism, where your core personality, you could say, your self-energy, in the terminology of internal family systems, that part of you isn't front and center. It's kind of letting this other subpersonality, this part, kind of take the driver's seat and run your life or direct your actions at certain times when it might not be the most desirable or healthiest thing for you to have happening. So in different forms of therapy, you might be working with those different subpersonalities, those different parts of yourself that you've had develop at different times in your life. If we think about how we relate to the world around us, we may notice that we create these different ways of relating to our environment depending on which environment we're in. So you may have a sort of subpersonality that you use to relate to your friends, a different one to relate to your family or your romantic partner. You might have another subpersonality that appears in certain professional environments. If you're some form of an entertainer, then you'll have a personality in a sense that's present in that context that may be different from how you're connecting or relating with people in your personal life. So we find ways of adapting to certain environments to achieve some particular goal or purpose, whether it's to be accepted, to be loved and appreciated, to be seen as intelligent, as confident, as an expert, let's say, in your field, to be allowed into a particular social group. You might create a subpersonality that fits with that particular group. You act a certain way around them that you wouldn't act around other people. And this can occur at different stages or different ages in our life. So we might have a personality piece that appears when we're, let's say, 5 years old, that is useful for our 5-year-old self to feel safe or secure or to feel validated at that age. And then a sort of different type of subpersonality might be developed, let's say, when you're 12 years old. You're now in middle school, you're in puberty, you're relating to your peers and putting on a different presentation, let's say, in that environment. So now you have that personality, and so on. So at different times we create different subpersonalities to adapt or function to meet our different needs, whether it's basic survival, whether it's social acceptance and belonging, whether it's being seen as competent and talented in whatever field or career we enter. So this means that we're not just one simple unified personality or a singular self in a way. We have these different pieces of ourself that we can access as needed, but sometimes they get kind of split off, where it's almost as though there's a wall between one subpersonality and other subpersonalities where they're not really cohesive or cooperative. We may have a certain personality piece that becomes overly dominant or overly activated and energized, so it's kind of taking over even when it's not really very valuable or helpful for what our current situation might be. You might have a piece of your personality that's like very aggressive in a sense, that's very eager to speak out, to speak up, to express your will, sometimes in a very confrontational way, or we could say aggressive way, where you're very imposing toward other people. And that may have been useful in a certain social group, but it might be very harmful, let's say, in other settings. You might get fired from your job if you act that way in front of your boss. You might have your girlfriend or boyfriend break up with you if you speak to them or treat them in that way. So we can realize that something that could be useful in one situation is really interfering with our life and our well-being, our relationships in other situations. And this often happens without us really consciously realizing that we've fallen into that pattern. We also have, let's say, past traumas or repressed memories, experiences where there's a part of ourself that kind of got shunned in a way. We're kind of not consciously paying attention to it. We might in some way be ashamed of it. We might not want other people to see that aspect of ourselves. And as a result of that, it's kind of cut off. It's sort of disconnected, even though in certain situations it'll pop up and become dominant as a subpersonality that we're expressing. It might be a part of ourself that's protecting us in some way. It could be a part of ourself that's very eager to receive validation. So it might be people-pleasing or fawning toward other people to get them to accept us. That might actually backfire. So if people perceive you acting that way, it might in some way be irritating or unsettling to them. They might not like you now when you're an adult acting in that manner. It might seem kind of childish to them. So there's all these different patterns that could emerge, and we want to work on being more conscious and aware of all these different parts of ourselves. In the internal family systems therapy treatment model, a person is being guided to become more aware of these different parts, particularly what they're feeling and how they're reacting, what's happening in their body, what are the significant emotions that arise in particular situations, and to actually recognize why you are feeling a certain way and acting a certain way, what subpersonality is being activated, what is its goal or role in supporting the self, in doing what it thinks is good or positive for you in life. So the idea there is that these different subpersonalities or parts are always acting in some manner that they feel is for your best interest, even when from a more objective or neutral perspective it might appear that it's not for your benefit. From the perspective of that part, this is actually serving some positive purpose. It's meeting some need or goal that you have. So that's looking at what is the function of a particular pattern, a particular behavior or reaction. And there's different categories, a few different categories of these parts. So you could have parts of you that are seen as exiles, that are kind of hidden or shunned or separated. They're being pushed down. There are parts of you that may have a lot of fear or anxiety, that are afraid to face the world, to face your social surroundings. You could also have parts of you that are very actively trying to protect you, to shield you from harm in some way. So those parts believe they're doing something positive, yet in whatever current environment you're in, that action might be counterproductive. So you want to be able to kind of connect with your self energy, your core self, and have a meeting in a sense with these different parts, so you can all coordinate and communicate, so you can be more of a team rather than each part just doing its thing without perceiving how it affects the whole, without understanding how the other parts feel about what it's doing, how they might perceive that action or behavior. So if you only have one part of you dealing with your surroundings, your environment, then you're missing out on the perspective of the other parts, of their skills or resources, of their understandings. So you're essentially out of balance. To be in balance is to be more integrated, to have access to all those different parts or subpersonalities where they can collaborate in a sense to figure out what is actually the best way to handle what we're dealing with in our life right here and now in whatever situation you're in. If you've pushed off a section of yourself, a part of who you are, then you might not have the benefit of what that part of you has to offer in terms of insight and of skills or talents and resources. So our goal in a sense is to be less fragmented, to be more self-aware, more connected with all the parts of yourself, where you can use all those resources, where you really have all of your energy available to you, since we could think of each of these parts or subpersonalities as parts of your energy, of your total energy that you can apply in your life in the here and now. So we want to have our full energy available to us in each moment of our life, so we have the strength, the wisdom, the resources to handle things in an optimal or ideal manner, rather than only having a part of our consciousness available that may have certain skills or resources that it relies on, but lacks other skills or resources that might be more useful for what we're dealing with in our present experience. So this brings me to the topic of hypnosis or hypnotherapy, which is a therapeutic modality to access the deeper parts of your consciousness, the parts that you might not be aware of in your conscious thinking. So if we're just using our rational conscious mind to think about something, we're often not accessing a lot of what's in our subconscious, particularly things that we've kind of suppressed or repressed or forgotten about. We're not often remembering things that happened when we were very young and how we might have adapted at that time, what we were thinking and feeling about ourselves at a particular age, and what behavior patterns we might have developed or what thought patterns we might have developed to create our sense of self or our identity in those other times. So with hypnosis, we can connect more fully or deeply with those other parts of ourself. We can reconnect with them in a sense and help them process those times from our life, or even other lifetimes, if you include reincarnation and other human experiences. So all of that could potentially be accessed under hypnosis when our conscious, linear thinking mind is allowed to rest or relax, to slow down. We can open up to those other aspects or parts of ourself, and we can, in a way, create a bridge between our conscious mind and our subconscious and superconscious mind. So we can reprocess different experiences, we can reunite with different parts of ourself so they're no longer separated or exiled from us. We're now reintegrating them, bringing those parts of ourself and our energy into our here and now self, into our self energy of the present. As we do that, we become essentially more balanced and whole. So we have access to more of who we are, more of our experience, more of our inner wisdom. So hypnotherapy actually takes some of these other therapeutic approaches, such as internal family systems, kind of further and deeper than they might function if they're only working on the conscious level of just talking about things that you've had conscious access to. We often need to get access to things that have been kind of pushed down on a subconscious level. That's often where our deepest wounds are, where our deepest fears are, where unresolved traumas are. So hypnosis helps us access that, and then we can combine that with some approaches such as internal family systems, different forms of cognitive therapies, where we can use our conscious understanding to connect with the emotional part of ourself, so they can come together to reprocess things, so we're not split, we're not fragmented. I hope that this explanation of how these therapeutic ideas and practices can be integrated is useful. In the therapy work or healing practice that I provide, I'm often combining more than one type of modality because they often do complement each other. One modality helps the person open their energy or consciousness to more fully apply another modality. For example, I might use Reiki to relax and expand a person's energy so that they can then go into hypnosis and, you could say, pull up or pull out from their subconscious significant memories and experiences that are ready to be reprocessed or released. So those are examples of therapies that could complement each other. Also with hypnosis, and also with different forms of energy work or somatic work or body work, when you start to connect with things that are held at that level, whether it's subconscious memories or even what you could call cellular memory, where the body is bringing up its past reactions, its past experiences, you can now connect and combine that with cognitive type therapies, with mindfulness type therapies, where the person from their center of self, their self-energy or core self, is able to be present with whatever sensations, whatever emotions, whatever memories are coming up, so that these can now be integrated and really understood in a more complete way now. So you have, in a sense, a new perspective or expanded perspective on different pieces or chapters, in a sense, of your life. So you're able to reflect on when you were a teenager or a child or a toddler from your mature adult perspective now. And it's like you're reuniting with that younger version of you. You're merging, in a sense, so that if that part of you is accessed, let's say, it's not going to take over and dominate over your adult self and cause you to act like a toddler when you're in your job doing your work. It allows you to work with any aspect of yourself, to connect with any quality or resource that you need without disconnecting from or losing access to the other parts of yourself. So your child self isn't going to be dominating your adult self, and your adult self isn't going to be losing access to some of the qualities that are valuable that we have when we're children. So feeling excited, enthusiastic, curious, all the different qualities that are often in a way enhanced in childhood relative to adulthood, you can access those and bring them out more by reconnecting with your child self, by not pushing down or shunning or suppressing that younger version of you. I hope that brings some insight or understanding into how these processes can unfold. For those that are interested in holistic healing work, in working with body, mind, and spirit, in addressing both psychological issues and physical health issues, there are additional resources on my website, which is phinsights.com, phinsights.com. for now, I would like to wish everyone a wonderful day. Namaste.